please hit that subscribe button. Hey everybody, better suited to win the Stanley Cup this season. If you are new to the channel, Washington Capitals, the Boston Bruins.
Locked on and he scored! And we're live.
Hey everybody, it is time for our final series preview of 2020 qualifying round series. And we are talking today about the 5 versus 12 matchup in the Eastern Conference, the 5-seed Pittsburgh Penguins versus the 12-seed Montreal Canadiens. Before we get started, I just have to ask that you please hit that subscribe button if you're new, and give this video a thumbs up if you haven't already, so those likes go a really long way in helping the channel and are much appreciated. But let's get into it here, starting with Pittsburgh, who finished the year with a 40-23-6 record, good enough for 86 points and 5th place in the Eastern Conference. In their season series against Montreal, they played 3 games this year, and Pittsburgh went 2-1-0 in those 3 games. The Penguins were a good offensive team, per usual. Obviously, any team with Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin are probably going to be a good offensive team. And Pittsburgh scored 3.2 goals on the button for per game this season, which was good for 10th in the league, so they have a top 10 offense. Defensively, they also were pretty strong defensively as well, giving up just 2.84 goals against per game, which was 11th in the NHL, so just outside the top 10 in goals against a game. So pretty strong both ends of the ice and both sides of the puck for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Their power play wasn't quite as good as you would expect for a team with superstars like Sidney Crosby, Evgeny Malkin, Chris Letang on the back end. They were only 16th in the league this year with a 19.9% conversion rate on the man advantage. However, their penalty kill was very, very good at 82.1% on the PK, 8th in the NHL, so top 10 penalty kill this year for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Their leading goal scorer this season might surprise you. It was Brian Rust, who had an outstanding breakout season offensively. He had 27 goals on the year this year, and with Crosby missing time, with Malkin missing time, with Gensel missing a good portion of the season, that 27 was enough to lead the Pittsburgh Penguins. Their leading point scorer, though, was Evgeny Malkin, who had finished the season with 74 points. Obviously, Crosby missed a pretty significant amount of time this year. Normally, it would have been Crosby, but Malkin takes the reins this year with a 74-point season. And Evgeny Malkin also led the team in penalty minutes with 58 penalty minutes on the season. So it's, Malkin's always been a pretty big penalty minute guy, especially for a star forward. But it might be a little surprising to see him leading the team. But Pittsburgh, kind of a toughness by committee approach with the Pittsburgh Penguins, and has been for the last couple of years. They don't really have that one guy who racks up a ton of penalty minutes. It's kind of just everyone chips in and plays tough and protects themselves, protects their teammates, and it's kind of a all for one type approach, and it's a toughness by committee approach. And Malkin actually is the one that comes out on top as far as penalty minutes go this year. Moving on to the Montreal Canadiens, they finished this season with a 31-31-9 record for 71 points in the Eastern Conference, obviously a 500 team. They were not going to be a playoff team this year without the season stoppage in the 2014 playoff. They went 1-1-1 versus the Penguins this year, though, in the regular season, so they were able to win a game. They lost another one in overtime. So they were able to hang with Pittsburgh in their games in the regular season. We'll see how that translates to playoff hockey. But Montreal, pretty mediocre this season. I don't think Montreal is a very good team overall. I think they're a middle-of-the-road 500 average mediocre hockey team, and that's why they finished 24th in the league. They were the last team to get into this 2014 playoff, and they scored 2.93 goals for per game this year, 19th in the NHL, so kind of middle of the road, but lower half of middle of the road there. They gave up 3.1 goals against per game, which was also 19th in the NHL, so again, middle of the road, lower half of the league. Their power play is not very good, just 17.7% on the man advantage, which was 22nd in the NHL this season. And their penalty kill isn't exactly great either at 78.7% on the PK, which was once again 19th in the NHL. So 3 out of the 4 categories there, they're 19th in the NHL. Their leading goal scorer this year was actually a tie for the team lead between Tomas Tatar and Brendan Gallagher, both scoring 22 goals on the season, and those 22 goals were enough to lead the team. Their leading point scorer was Tomas Tatar with 61 points on the year. He had a actually very, very good season. Tatar had a very good season with Montreal this year, and he was a guy that really stuck out for them as being an productive offensive player, and just a really good piece to the puzzle there with the Canadiens. And their leading penalty minute getter was defenseman Ben Sherratt, who had 61 penalty minutes on the year. Not really surprising. He's a pretty physical defensive defenseman, and not like he had 100 penalty minutes or anything like that, but he had a pretty physical season with 61 penalty minutes for the Canadiens. Overall, prediction time, I have Pittsburgh in 4 again. I mean, there's so much talk about this series. I feel like this series is being overhyped a little bit. There's a ton of talk about Montreal upsetting Pittsburgh, and I really don't know why. The Pittsburgh Penguins are, when they're healthy, are the far superior team to the Montreal Canadiens. The rosters just aren't even comparable. I mean, you've got Crosby and Malkin and a healthy now Gensel and Rust and Hornquist and Zucker added at the trade deadline, and Letang and like Matt Murray and Tristan Jarry duo in goal. Like, the Pittsburgh Penguins are such a good team on paper, and they were competing up with Philadelphia, right there with Philly and Washington in the Metro Division. And then on the other side, you have you have Max Domi, you've got Philip Deneau, you've got Tomas Tatar, but you're definitely a step down offensively. You've got Shea Weber on the back end, and that's pretty much it as far as high-level defensemen go. It's Shea Weber and a bunch of depth guys. Carey Price, obviously the X factor in goal, and Carey Price is the reason people are giving Montreal a chance in this series. Carey Price would have to absolutely stand on his head and literally be like 2014 Carey Price to steal this series for the Montreal Canadiens. And I'm not saying that it's impossible, but it's just very, very unlikely. Carey Price now and the team in front of him is not even close to what they were 5 years ago. And I don't get all the upset talk in this series. Personally, I think Pittsburgh will certainly handle business and get the win here. I'm not picking a sweep. I don't really think anyone's going to get swept. I think every team's going to at least win a game, most likely. But I've got Pittsburgh in 4 here, and I'm sticking with that. I think this is a series. This is a series that's getting hyped up a little too much, and that all the upset talk. I know it comes from Montreal having Carey Price, but I just personally don't really understand it. It would take a miracle for Montreal to pull this off. But that's, we've seen stranger things in the NHL playoffs. So I'm never going to come out here and say that a team can't win. I'm never going to say that, a team has no shot in the postseason, because we see it. We see major upsets year after year after year. I just personally don't see it happening, and I would never predict it to happen. I think this Pittsburgh team is just way too good, way too experienced, and full of star talent that Montreal just flat out doesn't have. And, Montreal is a 500 team this year, and they were a 500 team for a reason. Like, that's what they are. They're an average, mediocre hockey team. They're missing star power offensively. They don't have a ton of offense. And outside of Shea Weber, that defense core needs to improve a lot. That defense core is a whole bunch of depth guys. Petrie can put up points offensively, but he's brutal in his own end. Guys like Mete and Sherratt and Juleson, who was injured for most of the year, and Xavier Ouellet. Like, these are depth players. These are not guys that you want playing top 4 minutes. So I really don't see it with Montreal. It's certainly not impossible. And again, if Carey Price gets super hot and goes on a ridiculous, 2014 era Vezina Trophy Carey Price streak, then could they steal the series? Absolutely they could. I'm just not picking that to happen. I think there's Pittsburgh's a 5 seed for a reason. Montreal's the 12 seed for a reason. Like, these teams are at very different points, talent-wise, and as far as, where they're at in the scheme of the NHL. Pittsburgh's just the much better team, in my opinion. So that's my take on Pittsburgh versus Montreal. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. All those links are down in the description below. If you'd like to further support the channel, our donation link, Patreon, and merchandise store links are down in the description as well. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.